Hello and welcome. In this episode, we dive into the wild story of how a Tyrian fireship attack took down Macedonian siege towers during Alexander the Great's campaign. After his victory at Issus and the humiliation of Darius III, Alexander marched south along the Phoenician coast. Most cities submitted, but one stood defiant: Tyre, the ancient and immensely wealthy Queen of the Seas. Perched on an island fortress half a mile from shore, defended by formidable walls and a powerful fleet, Tyre presented Alexander with one of his greatest military challenges. His audacious solution to build a massive causeway across the sea, an engineering marvel born of unyielding determination. Following his decisive victory over Darius III at Issus in late 333 BCE. Alexander the Great continued his strategy of securing the entire eastern Mediterranean coastline before striking deeper into the Persian Empire. He advanced south through Phoenicia, a region famed for its maritime cities and skilled sailors. Most of these cities, including Arwad, Byblus, and Sidon, recognized the new balance of power and quickly submitted to him. Their fleets, which had formed a significant part of the Persian navy, now came over to Alexander's side, a crucial development that would soon prove invaluable. However, one city, the most powerful and prosperous of them all, refused to yield fully. Tyre was an ancient metropolis, renowned for its wealth derived from extensive maritime trade, its purple dye industry, and its colonial network, which included the mighty city of Carthage in North Africa. What made Tyre particularly formidable was its unique geography. The main city was situated on an island, approximately half a mile, about 800 meters, from the mainland coast, where old Tyre Palatoris was located. This island fortress was heavily fortified with massive walls, reportedly reaching heights of up to 150 feet, 45 meters, on the seaward side, making it virtually impregnable to conventional land assault. Tyre also possessed two well-protected harbors, the Sidonian harbor to the north and the Egyptian harbor to the south, which could be closed off by booms, and it boasted its own powerful war fleet. The Tyrians had a long history of resisting powerful besiegers. Nebuchadnezzar II of Babylon had famously besieged the city for 13 years in the 6th century BCE without capturing the island stronghold. When Alexander approached, the Tyrians initially adopted a diplomatic stance. They sent envoys who presented him with a golden crown and offered provisions for his army, signaling a willingness to acknowledge his supremacy. However, their commitment was tested when Alexander expressed his desire to enter the island city to offer sacrifice to its chief deity, Melkart, whom the Greeks identified with their own hero Heracles. This was a customary act for Alexander, signifying his piety and his peaceful intentions, but also subtly asserting his sovereignty. The Tyrians, wary of admitting Alexander and his soldiers into their impregnable fortress, politely refused. They suggested he could sacrifice to Heracles in the ancient temple in Old Tyre on the mainland, but declared that they would admit neither Persians nor Macedonians into the island city itself. This was a calculated attempt to maintain a precarious neutrality, or perhaps a veiled defiance, hoping that Darius would eventually recover and drive Alexander out of Asia. For Alexander, this response was unacceptable. He could not afford to leave such a powerful, unsubdued naval base in his rear as he advanced further into Persian territory. A defiant Tyre, with its strong fleet, could serve as a rallying point for Persian resistance, threaten his maritime communications with Greece, and potentially support anti-Macedonian movements. Moreover, Alexander's personal pride and his image as an irresistible conqueror were at stake. He resolved to take Tyre, no matter the difficulty or the time it would take. His commanders were likely daunted by the prospect. Besieging an island fortress without overwhelming naval superiority seemed an almost impossible task. Alexander's solution was audacious and characteristic of his unyielding determination and engineering ingenuity. He decided to build a causeway, or mole in Greek choma, across the sea channel connecting the mainland to the island city. This massive undertaking began immediately. In January of 332 BCE, thousands of soldiers and conscripted local laborers were put to work, using stones and rubble from the dismantled buildings of old Tyre, and felling vast quantities of timber, including cedars, from the mountains of Lebanon. The planned mole was to be approximately 200 feet, about 60 meters wide, to accommodate siege engines and troop movements. The construction of the mole was an arduous and dangerous process. The sea at that point was deep in places, and the Tyrians did everything in their power to hinder the work. Tyrian warships, full of archers and catapults, sailed out from their harbors and relentlessly harassed the Macedonian workers on the mole. Tyrian divers swam out underwater to pull away the logs and stones that formed the foundations of the advancing causeway, undermining its stability. The Macedonians responded by erecting 2 tall wooden siege towers at the head of the mole, equipped with their own catapults and missile throwers to provide covering fire for the workers and drive off the Tyrian ships. They also built protective screens of wood and hides. The Tyrians then launched their most devastating counterattack. They took an old, large horse transport ship and loaded it with highly combustible materials: pitch, sulfur, bitumen, and dry wood. At its prow, they suspended cauldrons filled with burning substances. They rigged it with 2 masts and yardarms, from which more flammable materials were hung. Waiting for a favorable wind blowing towards the mole, they towed this massive fireship towards the Macedonian siege works and then set it alight. The burning vessel, driven by the wind and its sails, crashed with terrible force into the end of the mole, igniting the 2 siege towers and the wooden stockades. As the Macedonians struggled in confusion amidst the flames, Tyrian soldiers swarmed out from the city in triremes, attacking the mole, destroying siege engines, and cutting down any who resisted. This brilliantly executed and daring raid was a severe setback for Alexander. A significant portion of the mole was destroyed or badly damaged, and Macedonian morale was shaken. Alexander, however, was not a man to be deterred by a single failure, no matter how spectacular. He immediately ordered the mole to be rebuilt, this time even wider and stronger, to provide greater stability and accommodate more defensive structures. More importantly, this disaster crystallized a crucial realization in his mind. To take Tyre, he absolutely needed naval supremacy. While the mole was essential for bringing his land-based siege engines to bear against the city walls, he could not complete it or protect it effectively as long as the Tyrian fleet could operate freely. His decision to disband most of his fleet after Miletus now looked potentially premature. He urgently needed to assemble a new, powerful navy. The first phase of the siege had been a brutal lesson in the challenges of island warfare and Tyrian resilience. The next phase would depend on Alexander's ability to gain control of the sea. We hope you had a blast watching our video. We had so much fun making it for you. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with your friends who love military history.